Awesome. Look forward to it.
Okay, gents, welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. Just give me 1 second. I realized I forgot to hit record over here. It's been a morning for chaos. It's I was just saying to Harry, and this is probably the awesome part about real life. I was pumped out. I think I did 4 or 5 podcasts yesterday because I was racing in between meetings while I was doing them. I was carrying my laptop and the portable podcast kit with me everywhere. And the last one I did was not here. So when I walked into the office this morning after getting chatting to you on Facebook, and then I'm like, oh no, my computer and stuff's not here. It's in the other office. So I had to race across town to get it, but we've made it happen. So thanks for your patience, Harry. Appreciate it. I know you're currently holidaying in Puerto Rico. How are you going, mate?
Yeah, mate. Mate, no, it's good. Mate, it happens. Technology. Now we've got iPads, iWatches. I'm just trying to figure out how to turn my iWatch off, and I'm still struggling to figure that part out. I'm like, turn off the notifications. I'm like,
Mate, they're amazing.
Yeah, mate, I appreciate you having me.
I know we're going to have an unreal conversation, mate. I've been following you closely since we were introduced. It would be over 12 months ago, mate. I remember the first time we met, you messaged me, and we have a mutual friend, and you came along to one of the Man That Can men's circles, but you had this incredible idea with what you wanted to do, obviously with your rugby club, West Rugby, at the time, and then you were leaving to head back over to the States. I think it was like a day after that or something. It was such an incredible introduction because you were this like straight to the point, excited dude who was really passionate about, men's health, mental health, but also rugby. And I was like, I've never really seen it all put together. And then you're like, this is what we're doing. This is how we'd love you to be involved, and bang, 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 bang. And then you're out of the country. I was like, wow, this guy is wild.
Yeah. Look, it's straight to the point. There's no way around it. But yeah, sometimes they work out better than the others. But unfortunately, it wasn't as complete as I hoped it'd be. But obviously, it led to you and I fostering a relationship that now has led to ATL being part of it, and the other influences around that, and then now today, which has been I think a blessing in disguise. So that's kind of how I see the silver lining in it.
Yeah, I think it's incredible, and it'll be awesome to see where it goes over the coming years. But how have things been going for you? Obviously, you went back over to the States, and then COVID hit, and you're based in Atlanta, and you're obviously going over there to play rugby. It shut things down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
How's that whole experience been for you?
I've never seen a professional league shut down within a week. Like, 1 week we're playing New York here in Atlanta, and then the following week, we had 15 or 16 blokes all sent home, and then the league was closed the week later. It's scary, and it's a very it's a history-setting time for all of us. It's never shut down professional sport before with a pandemic as such, and I guess we're leading into a new era of professional sport where the safety and concerns around the pandemic are going to be top priority. Even today with our training and all of our safety precautions at HQ, we have a great team and health experts within our staff at Rugby ATL that take care of these things for us, and obviously put the precautions in place for us to still train and become the best athletes that we can be. But again, it's a scary time. Again, the future of the sport and the MLR competition is something very, very dear to my heart. That's my employment, and then obviously I hope to be here for a long period of time. But my biggest ambition is to see the MLR and rugby here in the US grow. I think that's one of the biggest things for us here is, we partake in these other activities. For me, AYR is one of my strongest passions, is coaching and giving back to the kids. But, if rugby was to cease and halt here in the US, I think, programs that are amazing like that give back to such small communities and the underprivileged and stuff like that would, obviously close down. And that's something that, I'd be very upset about and emotional about. So that's why, we want to see these little things done. And, that's why we take the necessary precautions to see them, make it through and obviously continue to grow the game.
It's awesome to see, mate. Like, I love checking your Instagram because you are so active. you are so actively involved in the development of the game. Obviously, you know, you're working on yourself a lot, but then you're also spending so much time giving back to the youth rugby and all you know, great causes like that. Because there's a lot of people that talk about it, but you're less talk, more action, which is, you know, it's inspiring
I
for
think
me to watch.
I think we can get I think we can get confused with a lot of the talk that happens, and sometimes we do too much talking and thinking. And for me, sometimes I get caught up in myself. You know, I have big ideas and I love all these concepts, but for me, sometimes I've just got to put, you know, my feet on the pavement and get out there and start doing things. And that way, I actually get momentum, and then I can actually do, you know, trial and error and see what works for me, what works for other people. You know, I can have conversations by being out there and talking to people, and then you actually get real time feedback. So for me, sometimes it's about just getting out there and getting it done, and, you know, batting heads with the enemies and seeing what happens.
100%, 100%. So let's dive into it. But for you, you know, obviously where you're at, you know, you're playing rugby professionally over in the States, you're doing a lot of work trying to help the next generation, also the development of the game, but you're also heavily involved. You know, you've constantly been reaching out to me, asking how you can help out with the Man at Camp project. And I'm sure you do that to a lot of, you know, people, because you just love to give. But what have been some moments in your life that have made you the man you are today? Like some, I guess, defining moments? Because I know you've had some pretty interesting stuff happen, and, you know, from studying over in the States to living over in the States. Obviously, you're a Brisbane boy originally, so I'm sure you've got a few incredible stories under the belt.
Yeah, look, I'm going to probably write a book one day about it, or put it into a short story movie directed by Mark Wahlberg if he's interested. But
I love it, man.
But until then, I'll give some pointers. But yeah, I think, you know, a lot of the, you know, big defining moments in my life have sort of, I've always seen the thing is like, you know, it can happen to you or you can react to it. So I always say, you know, the things that I reacted to the most were my parents divorcing when I was a young age. You know, hasn't always been bright stars and pretty pictures for me. You know, obviously when my parents divorced and stuff like that, that was tough. You know, but at the same time, you know, you and I talked about mateship and all that. So I think what I really clung to then was all my mates that I had going up through high school and outside of school and stuff like that. They kind of got me through a lot of those really tough moments, you know. And as we've talked, you know, the extracurriculars in life that, you know, sometimes go hand in hand with partying too much can get the better of us. And, you know, at the end of the day, we've all been there, and I've definitely been I've definitely taken fair share of more than half. But at that time, you know, it's one of those things, you can find yourself in a rut, or you can find yourselves in one of those moments, and it comes down to what you want to achieve or who you want to become that really can define those next steps. So, you know, when I was going through that big era in my life, when my parents divorced and that sort of stuff, it kind of led to a point where, like we were just discussing about, I got stabbed. I got stabbed in the lower back. I got stabbed with a hunting knife. It was one of the most traumatic experiences in my life, and I'm not going to lie about it, because it was honestly the scariest thing that ever happened to me personally.
You got stabbed with a hunting knife. I would have been freaking out if I got stabbed with a butter knife as well. It's a hunting knife.
Yeah, look, honestly, any knife is going to be scary when it's in your body. When I, you know, whatever happened in the scuffle, I woke up when it came to consciousness, it was in my back still. The people were still around me, so I had to run down to a fuel station. You know, I ran down the fuel station. My mate was there at the time, and I was like, I'm bleeding from somewhere. And long story short, it was still in my back. So I'd run like, you know, 500-600 meters with this knife in my back. But he came to, and I'm down at this Puma fuel station down at bloody Ascot. And my mate's gone to me, you've got a knife in your back. So I'm like, oh, you know, what do I do? And then he's like, so I was like, mate, just like squeeze the wound shut. So we've gone and hid behind this fuel station, and I'm just sitting there bleeding. It's all down my legs. My mate's holding my back with the knife in my back. We're waiting for him. You know, the whole thing was just an absolute nightmare, and it just was just happening second after second.
What happened? Like,
look, you know, I always joke about this, but I say that it happened because of a friend of mine, but really it didn't happen because of him. It was my actions that led to a result, that me getting injured and hurt. And I take full responsibility of that. I should have acted differently. But again, like we talked about, it's coming from where you are to where you want to go. So I understand now that I made the wrong decision at that time.
Yeah. The knife in the back probably leads to that. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a clear indicator I did something wrong. But yeah, anyway, came out of the back of the fuel station at the Puma there in Ascot, and the bloody ambos are like, "Oh, can you lie down on the bed?" I'm like, "Mate, no, I can't lie down on the bed. I've got a knife in my back." So my humor was still intact, which was okay. So I wasn't worried about it. I was like, "Okay, I can get through this if my humor's still there." And the worst part about it is, my Okanui's got bloody cut off and sent to the bin. So that was pretty tremendous. But yeah, that was one of the big incidents in my life. And then after that, it was actually funny. I went through rehab and got my back better and stuff like that. And I ended up going to a farm out in Theodore, who were the Holmes family. They're a couple of TSS boys and incredible family. So I went out there for a couple of weeks, couple of months, and worked on the farm. My back got stronger and stuff like that. And I remember talking to Sharon, and she was saying, you should really look at getting back into your footy and stuff like that. So at that time, I was going through a lot of emotional, personal stuff, and I realized that I'd got away from what I really enjoyed doing and the things that made me happy. And I was too focused on, extracurricular stuff. So at the time, an opportunity presented itself to go to America to study. And basically from there, I just sort of steambolled it. I went over to America. I had an uncle over there, Paul Puste. The Puste family were, I don't know if it was, through blind stupidity, they hosted me for the couple of months or just because of love. But they hosted me, and, there was a few hairy moments where I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but, Paul stuck through, and Mandy, she bit her teeth and, she dug her feet in, but, we eventually got through, and I stayed in Austin, Texas, played for the Blacks. We had a great year. I met some amazing people in Austin, Texas, and I absolutely loved it. So I realized that I found myself back in a really good environment where rugby was supporting me, and I was giving back, and I was doing my gym, and I started getting momentum. So from there, I just was like, I don't want to give this up yet. Like, I want to keep going. And so the opportunity at Arkansas State with Matt Huckabee turned up, and I did my 4 years there at Arkansas State. And I got my degrees, and through that period of time, I met just so many people that just kept encouraging me. I had amazing influences. I had amazing mentors, Clint Rallier, Matt Huckabee, some of these guys that just really, Kurt Huckabee was the first one. And then Matt Huckabee ended up being my coach. And, still to this day, he and I talk on Snapchat now, So it's one of those, like it's hilarious. So he shows me videos of the kids, you're invested in other people and their relationships, and it makes everything else better, So then the Hicks family and all the families that I met through Arkansas, they gave me a job, they put me on the right track, and all these little steps built me up into a much stronger, happier person. And, I used a lot of these relationships to develop certain areas of my life. As I said to you in my script, that it was the 8 areas that I kind of wish I knew what I was talking about earlier, so I could have defined my goals to set myself better intentions earlier. But again, timing is everything. And now it's important for me to focus on those areas and continue to grow.
100%. Mate, your story so far is bloody wild. Like, it's interesting, how you say, obviously, you went away from what made you happy. And whenever people tell me that, or I think about it for myself, because, life happens pretty quickly, and it's easy to get distracted and think we should be doing other things when most people know things that make them happy. They just don't make enough time to be doing it. So the fact that then you just sort of packed up and created a life where you are doing things that you're happy. But for me, you strike me as the most such an optimistic person. Even since you've jumped on this call, you've raised my energy, man. It's like, what time is it here? 6:30 in Australia. So I could be asleep, but you've just raised the energy. And I know you do that everywhere you go, because when I see you on social media, when you came to that event that time, like, you just like the Duracell bunny that fucking keeps
Yep.
going. Like, have you always been?
Yeah, mate. Look, honestly.
Yeah, you go. I was going to say, have you always been that optimistic with it, the way you view the world, or has it been something that you've sort of learnt, or the people that you've surrounded yourself around that has helped you sort of take that approach?
Yeah, look, I definitely think there's been I have a naturally high source of energy, but I think my outlook has changed with the people that I've met, and learning how to control my energy is my biggest problem, because I can come into a room that doesn't need my energy and still put my energy on people, and that can be a big friction point. But as I've learned to grow and develop as a leader, that's where I'm now finding my biggest growth is the times and the I guess the amount of influence I distribute is where I need to be able to control myself. My mom has always been, a massive part of my life. She's been incredible, and she's always one that sort of said, you need to go out and just live life. Like, you can't just sit behind a door and talk about it, and you got to go out there and make mistakes. Like,
Sound advice.
everyone. Yeah, exactly. None of us are perfect, right? But we can go out and make things better by the way we influence them. So, I take that hand in hand with a grain of salt as well. But, my thing is, I want to do everything I can to make people better and leave them in a better place than I found them. But that takes me doing things that make me happy, that I learn from, that I grow from. Sometimes they're good or bad. I don't say that they're always the best things for me. I think I was talking to you just before. You're saying just packed up my life and moved. I've done that, 3 times now. When I was in America, I actually got an opportunity to move to Sydney to play shoot shield for West Harbour, the Pirates, Canada Bay. Bang Bang Pirate Gang, 2018. Anyway, so the boys over there. So that was what I was saying. I was living with a girlfriend at the time. I had a great job in New York, walking dogs, personal training. I had a great life, and I was happy, and I was doing a good thing. But I wasn't satisfied with my accomplishments with rugby. That was the year before I played for the US, but I wanted to continue to push myself and grow. So the only way I could do that was to come back to shoot shield and find myself the next level of competition. So I went back there and I did the year and a bit with West Harbour. I loved it. But at that time, money was a constraint. So I went and got a job. And at that time, I found like getting a job was also a part of me that I'd been missing doing. So I found this, long life dream of playing rugby, professionally traveling the world. But then I also found this, living my life at home in Brisbane, this balance that I'd just come into terms with. So then the girlfriend and I broke up from America. So, there's a lot of juggling pieces at this point. So I'd left America and moved here in a matter of, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. And I just moved my life completely after being there for 7 years. So it wasn't just like an up and move, but I've just gone see ya and cut ties. So again, it was one of those things I sort of just went with my gut feeling. I just was like, I know that this is a good move for me. I feel like this is the right thing for me right now. So I just did it and got up and moved. And then, again, late last year, I did the same thing again. I just said, I know America has opportunity for me. So I'm just going to follow the best opportunities available for me. Because I think I don't know if I told you, but when I was in Australia, I sort of got into a professional environment. Rugby was still growing great. I was club captain, which was at West Bulldogs, which was one of the greatest achievements still to this day in my life. I loved it. I loved the people. I loved the environment. It gave me a sense of direction. But again, personally, I always have these goals and dreams that I want to chase. And if I got to chase them, I got to put myself in an environment to achieve them. So when I was in Australia, I was in the same momentum week in, week out. And I was like, I want to change. I want to go do something different. So that's when this whole opportunity with Rugby ATL, and obviously being here, I just haven't looked back. I'm just taking full head of steam, and I'm just going to do as much and create as much change as I can, be as strong and independent as I can, and put obviously the influence and growth in others around me while I've still got the opportunity. I don't think rugby is going to be there forever, but the ability to change and influence other people's lives, that's something I want to be a part of. And obviously I think that's why our relationship fostered so well, is the ability to give and share information with others.
Mate, that's incredible. And I love how you talk about the goals and dreams. And I think it's a big part of my story. You know, I was playing over in France and I just kept playing, you know, always trusting my gut. And, you know, you have that feeling at moments
Yeah.
in your life. And I know a lot of people have it, but very few people act on it, where it's like you feel like you have more to offer, more to give. You may not be quite sure what that is, but it's true just going, right, I've got to trust
Yes.
my gut and go after this, that it opens up a
Yes.
whole new way of thinking and way of being able to give back and live. And
Absolutely.
for you, like, did you ever experience any fear or doubt when you had those moments when you were tossing up making those decisions?
Absolutely. I was terrified. I was going to make the biggest mistake in my life, you know, and I've done it 2 or 3 times now. But, you know, experience leads to opportunity to grow and learn, right? You know, you never lose if you use the opportunity to learn and grow, right? I think that's one of the best sayings I've ever heard. I think that was Scotty Lawrence. He was like, you never lose a game or you never lose an opportunity if you learn and grow. So for me, I don't mind taking a couple of hits, you know, but I'm absolutely going to take it and learn from it every single time. So whether this is the best decision I've ever made, I won't know for 10, 15, 20 years. But it's an opportunity for me to take responsibility of myself and the decisions I made and then go in and act on them. So, you know, I think we just have to go out and make the best of the decisions we make. You know, that's where I am right now. You know, Atlanta might not be forever. I hope it is forever, but it might not be forever. If there's a decision or an opportunity that comes over in another state or another country, and it tells me that I'm doing the right thing, hey, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta trust your gut.
Fucking hell, man. Man, I love it. With the that's probably going to be the name of this, mate. Experience leads to the opportunity to learn and grow. But it all comes back to taking responsibility, right? Like I said before, there's people. I feel like the reason why I got all the opportunities I had at this point, before rugby in France and after rugby in France, I had about at least 15 different jobs, just because I was like, nah, that's
Yes.
where I feel I need to go. That's whereas people just sit because they're like the fear, right? And that's why I wanted to know whether you experience fear, because you're not a superhuman, you're still a normal person that experiences everything else that most lads that experience. But eventually you just got to pull the trigger and get after it. Like, the worst that can happen
Yeah.
is you find out it's the wrong thing for you. But, you know, you were saying
Yeah.
you make the best of the opportunity that you've decided to go after. And because
Yeah.
of
Look,
that,
honestly,
you
I
go.
think the fear is the most crippling, you know, mental roadblock that we ever go through. It doesn't matter what we talk about in life. It's the fear of the unknown, you know, not knowing where we're going to be, not knowing if we're going to be successful, not knowing if we're going to be happy. That's what stops most people push area. And obviously, I think I'm just oblivious to it, but I know it's there. And I fear a lot of things, but I don't know if it's my arrogance or my confidence. It just sends me through a wall of fear. But honestly, every decision I've made, and you know, I've done to this day, I'm so proud of myself for going there and doing it, because I can look back now and say, you know, I did something that, you know, at that time, I don't know if many people would have gone through and done that. Like it's a life altering moment. And I guess that's what gives me the confidence when I come into those situations again and again and again. I'm like, hey, look, I trust my gut. I use the information and the resources around me to make the best decision possible. When I get there, I'm just going to make the best of the situation I'm in. That's pretty much my life equation.
E equals MC squared, a little bit easier, mate. But it's
Yeah, exactly.
it's that certainty in self, and the most important thing that I believe anyone should do is take responsibility, take ownership. Like, if you're doing that, like you just said, you know you can be resourceful, you can find answers, or you can find support, you can find help if and when you need it. But you're not going to allow the fact that those things could potentially happen to hold you back. You just fucking trust your gut, have the certainty in self to go after you're the prime example of, you know, what we're trying to get people to start living like. Because yeah, you have some ups and downs, that's life, but you're having ups and downs regardless of whether you choose to get after what you want or whether you choose to let the fear sort of cripple and hold you back. So you may as well be doing it for a great reason, you know what I mean? But for you,
yeah. Look, honestly, I think. Sorry. So I was just going to say on that, like, I think, you know, to me, I have been very lucky in my life that I've had friends and family around me, I've had people around me that said, don't do it, that's stupid, blah, blah, blah. But I've also had a small group of people that have always said to me, believe in yourself and trust in yourself, trust in the process. And literally 90% of the time, you're going to come out the other side either in a better place or have learned from the situation. So, you kind of, when you change your perspective on how things happen or the result of something, I think that's when the fear becomes minimal and your opportunity to learn and grow and the optimism and the creativity comes more forward. That's how I see it anyway.
100%, guys. You've nailed a few things like responsibility, perspective, environment. Like, they're all key things to creating a happy and fulfilling life where you can continue to learn and grow. I think, just quickly as well, for everyone watching the video of this, the reason why Harry is continually wiping himself is because he just had a big bowl of chili first.
No, I just had the spicy beans and it's absolutely rinsing me. I don't know if I should be wearing clothes right now. It's so hot.
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't be, but here we are. But no, in Puerto Rico at the moment, and it looks like it's humid as hell. So I know there's going to be someone somewhere who's like, what is going on? And we had the conversation offline first. So I was aware, and Harry's like, I'm carrying this towel everywhere with me because it's just ridiculously humid. So
yeah, and all the local Puerto Ricans look at me and go, what's wrong with this bloody white guy? He's literally wiping himself with a towel. And I said, this is the third shirt I've gone through today alone. I'm not used to the humidity anymore.
Grew up in Brisbane, one of the most humid places possible, but loving it though. But what was it like? You said what was it, 2016 or 2018 when you represented the USA Eagles? Like, how was that experience for you?
2016 was my first year with the US. And again, that was probably the greatest moment in my sporting professional career. I don't know if it's called career, whatever. But my journey, that was my greatest moment because, despite everything that I'd gone through, the diversity, the setbacks, whatever it might be, broken bones, injuries, people saying you're not good enough, this sort of thing, it just put the most satisfying feeling inside of me, because if you set a goal and you just work at it day in, day out, it doesn't really worked towards a goal, and I achieved it. And from there, it wasn't about where I play next or whatever I do. It's fulfilling that feeling again. Like, for me, it's now about what I can give to other people. I still get the same feeling when I ran out on that pitch that day that I do when I turn up and I help someone else accomplish their goals. That for me is just as satisfying or even more satisfying, because I know that that's going to lead to momentum for my next job or my next opportunity or my next life goal. That's what I've found now, that it was a lesson in itself, that, teaching myself that I can achieve what I want to achieve by setting goals and basically just not listening to anyone else. It sounds weird, but trusting the process, that was literally the biggest thing I learned from the moment I got into that. And I've never been the biggest, fastest, strongest bloke out there, but if you really believe and you really love what you do, I feel like anything's possible.
100%. And it's funny, that's like a cliche thing, but every time I have conversations with people and people go, it sounds cliche or it sounds stupid, but it's like, there must be something in it, because everyone who's doing something well says those throw out lines, and they're like, and then they back it up with, it sounds cliche or it sounds stupid, but you're like, well, everyone who's doing something brilliant is saying that and they're living by that, maybe it is actually just that simple. Like, maybe we're going to work, or
I agree. I think
you crack on, bro.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I think simplicity is obviously one of the greatest things we can do. It's, simplicity to a game plan, or simplicity to your role, or, simplicity to your schedule every week. Like we talked about, if you can set up a schedule every week, it makes the mundane of it all go away. Like, you just know where you have to be, your timing. It just makes I don't know, what would it be? Just the routine schedule. It just makes everything for me processable, and I just going out there and getting it done. I can just go through my motions. Every time I turn up, I switch on. I go, that's what I need to accomplish for this goal or this training session or this, video session. I think simplicity is something that's, overlooked by a lot of people because it's just so simple. Or even coming back to something as much as if you love something, do it, and you'll still never look back a day.
It's interesting, hey. Like the planning is the most. You can't do anything without planning. Like people say, I want to be spontaneous or, go with the flow. I'm like, most people aren't spontaneous. They're just fucking confused. They're not achieving anything. The reason why they're spontaneous is because they're not following a fucking plan. Like,
correct.
You can
Correct.
schedule time to be spontaneous, and you can probably actually be more spontaneous because you're prepared for it. So
yes, you can schedule times to be spontaneous.
Yeah,
it's the best part.
Exactly. Like simple, and then you can be intentional with it. But those who just sort of go through and don't appreciate their time never have any fucking time. And I look at what you achieve. Once again, I'm not sitting in your diary, but I follow along pretty closely. I'm a backseat passenger, but you get a lot of stuff done, and you've achieved a lot of stuff over that period of time because you are really intentional and diligent with the time and what you wanted to do. And obviously, you made some big decisions in your life, like moving countries and walking away from relationships and doing all this sort of stuff to get to where you want to. And every time you say yes to something, you say no to something else, or vice versa. You say no to something, you're saying yes to something else. And it's just back in those decisions that have got you where you want to be. And you're still like, you've played fucking international rugby and like you've lived overseas, but you're still wanting to be better. I know there's people who feel like you might throw it into, you've also finished study. Like when they finish studying at university, that's it. Study's done. We've made it. It's like life never stops with the study. Life never stops with the progression because who you are today is going to be different to who you need to be tomorrow or the next day. And I think it's incredible, how you're shifting your perspective. You're continuing to put the hard work in, grow, and still looking for ways to fine tune who you are and how you can be more efficient and better leader, which is fucking epic. It's going to be interesting to see where you'll be in 10 years time.
Mate, hopefully still smiling and breathing, and that to me will be the most important part. But mate, I agree. I think time is probably our most precious commodity we can have. We never get back a second we spend on things that we don't love or we do love. So why not spend it on something that makes you happy and you enjoy doing, or you want to grow, or you want to study? Because you'll never regret spending time on doing something with ones you love, or spending money on people you love, or studying and learning something new. I said to you when we started our program with ATL, for me, my certificate and real estate license over here was important because it was part of my next step. But once I completed that, I was like, oh, well, I kind of missed this learning, growing, and I guess developing stage of my life that was, as much as you play rugby and stuff like that, you're always learning with that. But it was the separate part of my life, the professional part of my life, learning about sales technique, or whether it was learning about different laws in different countries. It was just interesting to have a different perspective of learning and growing as opposed to what I had every day of my week, which I'd already accounted for, but I didn't realize I was missing. So it was very interesting to see that progression.
We're more than our career. Like often, and especially as men, we want to be the protector and provider, and our identity hinges on where we're at in our career, whether it's playing professional rugby or working our way up the corporate ladder, or if you're a small business owner, whatever it is, that becomes, because we spend so much time in that. It's like, I'm Harry, the footy player, or I'm Lockie, the business owner. It's like, no, that's just an extension of who we are, and we can continue to learn. And that's why we talk about the 8 areas. Like you need to be growing in all other areas, because sometimes you might hit a roadblock and you feel like that's the end. But if you're growing in other areas, it brings motivation or a different perspective on how you can overcome something throughout another area, which is how we continue to make progress. For yourself.
I completely agree that the 8 areas were something that was just, for me, once we progressed through that, and then me looking back was just one of those things. I was like, it makes so much sense, because as much as I do all these things, I never really had a plan about all of it. I had plans on certain areas, but I didn't combine and just, bring everything together under one structure. And I think I said to you before, your structure and your platform allowed me to organize all of that information while it's not perfect, it's still something that gives me structure and routine in my daily accordance. So if I follow that every week, some weeks are better than others. Don't get me wrong. I'll tell you right now. But I find that it gives me that mental clarity, focus, whatever it is, to set myself, my intentions and my goals for that week. When I look back, I'm like, yeah, okay, I didn't do as good in this area, blah, blah, blah. I give myself a reason why. And I know why. It's because I've got too much going on.
Yep.
I'm not allowing enough time in certain areas. Trust me, my biggest one's my relationships. As soon as I have a problem with my relationships, I'm like, whoa, something needs to change here. So, and I've got a Puerto Rican girlfriend who speaks Spanish. So as soon as she's mad, trust me, I know I'm making mistakes. So I quit something very quickly. Yeah, literally, she gets the whips out. She's like, whoosh. So.
Part of me thinks you'd enjoy that, mate. No, I'm kidding.
Definitely enjoy it.
So what's next for you? Like, obviously, you're working, you're still playing rugby, and I'm sure, when does the season start back up for you guys?
Mate, March. I think March 20th is our first game, but we have preseason starting in about 2 weeks. So the day I get back from Puerto Rico, we have about 2 days in between, and then we start a fitness preseason camp before our actual preseason, which starts in February, and then we have season starting mid-March.
Jesus, yeah, right. And I saw LA's got a new team over there, mate.
Oh yeah, they've got a few good boys over there. Mate. Gus Cottrell, the Smith brothers.
Mate, I was watching. I was
Tell you what, I wish I could go out there just for a holiday.
I was watching their Instagram, and just reading all the new signings. I was like, mate, they must have some cashola. Like, is there a salary cap over there?
Yes, there is.
Fucking hell, they must be treading carefully around it. But anyway, that's all good. But for yourself, obviously, what's the goal for the upcoming 12 months moving forward for you?
Look, I've got some personal goals that I really want to smash this year. In terms of rugby, I just got a leadership role at AYR within the coaches. I was a coordinator for the AYR and ATL partnership. So I've got 3 or 4 other rugby lads that I've got jobs there. So they're a couple of really good friends of mine. But I also think that they'd be great leaders and mentors for the younger generation. So they're out there coaching now. Which is fantastic. And I think that's an area that I really sort of want to focus on this year. And then for me personally is my playing. I've got some big goals. I want to be out there. I've got some fitness goals. I've got some physical goals that I really focus on, weight gain, playing minutes and stuff like that for the MLR, which will be, for me, a big step forward in terms of setting my intentions and, accomplishing those goals. And then apart from that, mate, I've got, like I said, outside of rugby, I really focus on my studies. I completed my first certificate for real estate here. So I have to take an exam, have to do that before the end of the season. And then hopefully in the next off season, I'll be able to come home for a month or 2, and then I'll be able to come back here and start a bit of off season work, which will be, looking for that bit of balance in life between rugby and work life.
That's awesome, mate. And two more questions, and then we'll let you get back to enjoying your time off. But for you, if you could go back to whether it's your 16 or 18-year-old self, just around that age period, what advice would you give to yourself? Because we do have a lot of young lads that tune into this podcast. So what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, I've got like a book of sayings. I don't know how to really describe it. The biggest thing I would say would be listen to those that love you, because I never listened to them, and I always try to do whatever my dad or my mom told me not to do, and I did it and got me in trouble. So I think my biggest one would be listen to the advice that people that love you give you, because really at the time, sometimes, they're doing it because they protect you or they don't want to see you get hurt. But sometimes they've gone through the same experience that you've gone through. I'm not saying it's the right way to do it. I wish I'd listened sometimes to my parents or the people around me that loved me and were sharing advice that was good to me. Because sometimes I look back and I could have honestly avoided all of that if I just listened to that one person. Um, but my biggest thing is we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And honestly, that's how I live my life now. I tend to live my life by giving more than I take, listening more than I talk, and just be present. Be present with the ones you love and enjoy your life as much as you can, and be happy and smile because it's contagious.
Mate, that is one of the greatest sayings I've heard this morning. Nah, probably this year. Make a living by what we get and make a life by what we give. Quality. So, final one.
Yeah.
What's your definition of being a man?
Whew, that's a good one.
I know nowadays, but
that's a very good one. The definition of being a good man. Honestly, I think it's it's about how we treat people. I think the world that we live in today would be a better place if everybody treated each other a bit better. And honestly, that's what I go out. Like I don't praise to be, perfect or whatever, but I'm always a working model at getting better and treating people fairly and giving respect to those who give respect. I think being a man is about showing respect to those around us and creating an environment for the ones we love to be successful, happy, and obviously just creating an environment around us that can, benefit others as much as it can benefit us. That's in anything in life, whether you're at work and you're a leader, create an environment that the athletes under me can be the best athletes they can be. At home with my girlfriend, create an environment that she's happy. My girlfriend's studying her doctorate in chiropractic down here at Life. And, the times when she's really under the pump, I go buy her coffee, or I bought her a Christmas tree the other day because she didn't have a Christmas tree, and the littlest thing like that can really change someone's mood or their entire life just by one simple act of generosity, or just care. Showing someone you're interested is a big thing these days, and it can really change someone's mood. And that's how I live my life. I try to leave everyone in a better place than I found them.
It's awesome, mate. It's funny. I bought a Christmas tree for our house. I never get the Christmas trees. I bought this one, yay big. I set it up, put tinsel on it, put a few
mine's about this big.
Yeah. I put a few lights on it, but I hung a few lights on like things that were hanging around to sort of like spread them. And then my missus has come home and just been like, "Did you try to decorate the dog?" And I was like, no, just tied it to the dog because it like looks better. And so the next morning I wake up and it's all fucking pulled apart and put back together.
Just everywhere.
Yeah. I was like, all right, at least I had a crack. But it's funny, mate. So,
hey, mate, that's all it's about, is having a go. That's for sure.
100%. So people can follow along for, obviously tune into the MLR season. This year you're playing for Rugby Atlanta or ATL, which is good, but you're also going to be continuing to do work with the Atlanta Youth Rugby. Where can people, follow along with you personally? Like, where's the best places to find you on socials or?
Yeah, look, I'm on Instagram, has Hadagram. It's not hard to find me. Harry Higgins AUS on my Twitter, Harry Higgins Facebook, any of the above. I'm pretty contactable, pretty accessible. You text me anytime, anywhere. If I'm on my phone, I'll respond. If I'm asleep, I probably won't. But but Rugby ATL is Rugby ATL on Instagram. They've got great giveaways. They've got good promotions. There's a good chance to follow along there. Great kit as well. Paladin USA, unreal. Keep it up. If you got Facebook, anything like that, you got the USLMR. I think it's USLMR, one of the two. They've got the website as well, which has all the current updates and all the different socials for all the teams. Mainly, my thing is, if you're going to follow along, follow the league. Don't follow just one team or one player. Support the league. Support the growth of the game over here because, it supports a lot of our homegrown players. As you said, LA Guiltinis, we've got 3 or 4 different Queensland Reds players there. You got some, Melbourne Rebels boys there. It's supporting the people that we love the most. So support USMLR, support your players, support your teams. It's going to be a great year. I'm very excited. It should be a lot of good footy, a lot of good players there, and the continued growth of the competition is going to be awesome.
100%. I'm excited to tune into it. That's for sure. And there is a lot of Australians over there, so it's brilliant. Mate, appreciate
Yeah,
your time.
absolutely.
I know you've given up time on your holiday, so I truly appreciate it. I got, a whole heap of notes here, and I can't wait to rewatch and re-listen to all the gold in here. But mate, I love your energy, your authenticity, mate. And I think you're a great leader and a great role model for a lot of people out there.
Mate, really appreciate you having me on the show, and I just love seeing what you're doing with all the boys back home. I think it's something that should be really honored, and again, the Movember stuff and all that, it just ties hand in hand with what you're doing, and I don't think people tell you enough, but you're doing a fucking great job. So well done, and I appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate it, brother.